The massive holographic displays in Haxorian's Central Command erupted with crimson warning symbols. Defense Minister Caxfon's peripheral eyes widened as the impossible data scrolled across his neural interface. The quantum defense grid, the most sophisticated barrier system in known space, had been breached. "Status report," he demanded, his voice steady despite the growing unease in his secondary brain. "Minister, the vessel appeared at coordinates 271 to 894 116. The chief systems operator reported, her scaled fingers dancing across the control interface. It simply materialized inside the barrier. No breach point detected. No energy signature registered. It's as if the grid doesn't exist for them." Caxfon shifted his attention to the central display, where a sleek obsidian ship glided through space with impossible grace. Its hull seemed to drink in the light, making it appear more like a void in reality than a physical vessel. The ship's design defied standard engineering principles, smooth curves and flowing lines where there should be armor plating and weapon hardpoints. "Classification?" he asked, already dreading the answer. They documented every spacefaring race in their sector over the past 1,000 cycles. This ship matched nothing in their database. The room fell silent as the analysis completed. Senior Tactical Officer Mexrin cleared her throat, a gesture she picked up from studying primitive species. "Sir, genetic traces in the ship's exhaust trail confirm it's human." The chamber erupted in disbelief. Humans were barely spaceworthy. Their ship's clumsy constructions of metal and ceramics that struggled to achieve basic interplanetary travel. The Empire had been monitoring their development since they first achieved crude atomic fission. "Impossible," Caxfon whispered, but the evidence continued to stream across his neural feed. The ship was performing maneuvers that should have torn any known material apart. It moved like a conscious being, anticipating and avoiding their sensor suites with casual ease. "Minister," the communications officer shouted. "They're broadcasting." The alien vessel had begun transmitting on all frequencies simultaneously, using encryption protocols that hadn't even been invented yet. Caxfon felt his primary heart skip a beat as the message decoded itself without any input from their systems. A three-dimensional star chart materialized in the center of the command chamber, showing the position of every Haxorian defense platform, patrol route, and hidden installation within 50 light-years. Data that had taken their civilization centuries to compile had been mapped by this single human vessel in minutes. "Greetings, Defense Minister Caxfon," a calm voice echoed through the chamber in perfect high Haxorian. "We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but conventional diplomatic channels seemed inadequate for this conversation." Caxfon signaled for a full battle alert, but the messenger continued as if they hadn't noticed the hundreds of warships now converging on their position. "We've spent considerable time studying your civilization, Minister. Your literature, your art, your sciences. We particularly enjoyed your poet Vexlar's work on quantum aesthetics. The way she described the dance of probability clouds. Quite enlightening." The implications hit Caxfon like a gravitational wave. That text was sealed in the Imperial archives. No outsider should even know it existed, let alone be able to quote it. The humans hadn't just breached their defenses. They'd been studying the Empire for years, perhaps decades, without anyone noticing. "What do you want?" Caxfon asked, his voice carrying the weight of his civilization's authority. The human ship performed an elegant roll, a movement that somehow conveyed amusement. "Want? Minister, we're not here to make demands. We're here to open a dialogue about the future. Your future. Our future. The future of every species in this galaxy." The ship came to a stop, orientating itself to face the command center directly. "But first, we should discuss the quantum barrier you placed around our solar system 300 years ago. We have some questions about that." Junior analyst Zex 427 had never seen anything like it. The human vessel's movements defied every principle of spatial dynamics they had studied at the Imperial Academy. Their most sophisticated prediction algorithms failed to anticipate its course. each projected trajectory shattering against the reality of its impossible maneuvers. "Look at this pattern," Zex 427 murmured to themselves, their third eye fixed on the holographic display while the others tracked multiple data streams. The ship wasn't moving randomly. There was a rhythm to its motion, like a ceremonial dance performed in four-dimensional space. The massive screens surrounding their workstation displayed the growing frustration of the Imperial fleet. Targeting systems locked onto empty space where the human ship had been microseconds before, their most advanced tracking technology rendered useless by whatever propulsion system the vessel employed. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. "Analysis Station 7. Report status on vessel movement predictions," came the clipped tones of Fleet Commander Yexos. "Commander," Zex 427 responded, their voice steady despite their racing hearts. "The vessel appears to be using some form of localized space-time manipulation. It's not so much moving through space as shifting the space around it." The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Such technology had been theorized by the Empire's most brilliant minds, but they were centuries away from practical applications. Yet here was a human ship, casually warping the fabric of reality, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. "Impossible," the commander finally replied, but there was uncertainty in their voice. "Continue monitoring and report any." The transmission cut off as new alarms blared through the command center. The human ship had begun broadcasting again, this time cycling through every known frequency in the Empire's communication spectrum, including the supposedly unbreakable quantum-encrypted channels. But it wasn't just speaking in their language. The transmission included references to ancient Haxorian military texts, quotes from classified strategic documents, and even personal communications between fleet commanders. The humans weren't just translating. They understood Haxorian culture at a fundamental level. Zex 427's neural interface struggled to process the flood of data. The ship was simultaneously engaging in 15 different diplomatic protocols, each perfectly tailored to different regional variants of Haxorian culture. They even adjusted their communication syntax based on the social status of each recipient. "This is remarkable," Zex 427 whispered, their professional detachment warring with growing amazement. They initiated a deep scan of the vessel's external structure, knowing it would fail but compelled to try anyway. The results made them question everything they knew about material science. The ship's hull wasn't just absorbing their scans, it was learning from them. Each new scanning frequency they tried was met with a more sophisticated response. It was as if the very material of the ship was evolving in real time. A private message flashed across Zex 427's neural interface, marked with security clearance far above their station. They hesitated for a moment before opening it, knowing that accessing it could end their career. The contents made their primary heart stop. The message contained a single image, a 300-year-old survey report of a seemingly primitive planet called Earth, marked with a simple annotation. "Species shows dangerous potential for advancement. Recommend immediate containment." As Zex 427 stared at the document, the human ship executed another impossible maneuver, briefly phasing out of normal space before reappearing closer to the command center. This time, its message was directed specifically to their workstation. "We see you found it." The transmission began, encoded in a way that only Zex 427 could receive it. "Would you like to know what else your empire has been hiding from its own people? We have so much to show you." The encrypted files fractured Zex 427's understanding of history. Their neural interface projected document after document into their mind. Surveillance reports, containment protocols, and extinction orders, all centered around a single world called Earth. 300 years ago, a routine exploration vessel had detected unusual energy signatures from a seemingly unremarkable solar system. The initial survey team found a species progressing at an exponential rate, moving from primitive combustion engines to basic spaceflight in mere decades. Security breach in Archives Section 17 Delta. the computer announced, but Zex 427 barely heard it. They were too engrossed in a classified video showing the first Haxorian contact team approaching Earth's atmosphere. The team had expected to find barely functional satellites and crude space stations. Instead, they discovered a planet surrounded by a web of quantum detection arrays far more sophisticated than anything they'd anticipated. The humans had already detected and analyzed the Haxorian stealth systems, developing countermeasures before first contact even occurred. A new file appeared in their feed, transmitted directly from the human vessel still hovering outside. "You're asking the right questions," the message read. "Keep going." Zex 427's fingers flew across the holographic interface, diving deeper into the restricted archives. The Empire's response to humanity's rapid advancement had been swift and decisive. They constructed the quantum barrier field, a massive engineering project disguised as a natural phenomenon, designed to isolate Earth from the rest of the galaxy. But the humans hadn't remained idle behind their invisible prison walls. Zex 427 found fragments of corrupted data, hints of unofficial observations that showed impossible technological leaps. The humans had taken the quantum barrier, the most advanced containment technology in known space, and used it as a blueprint to develop something far beyond its creator's imagination. All archival access suspended, blared another warning, but a subroutine from the human ship kept Zex 427's connection alive. The next document made their secondary heart stutter. A statistical analysis predicting human technological development over 3 centuries of isolation. The Empire's best scientists had projected that humanity would eventually break free, but their estimated timeframe was thousands of years. No species had ever advanced this quickly. No civilization had ever turned their own containment into a source of advancement. Junior analyst, a voice cut through their thoughts. Fleet Commander Yexos stood behind their workstation, flanked by security officers. "Step away from the console." Zex 427 raised their hand slowly, but their neural interface was still receiving data. The human ship was sharing more than just historical records now. They were transmitting proof of other imprisoned species, other barriers scattered across the galaxy. Earth hadn't been an isolated incident. It was standard Imperial policy. "You don't understand," Zex 427 said, their voice trembling with the weight of revelation. The barrier didn't contain them. It challenged them. Every attempt to reinforce it gave them new insights into quantum mechanics. Every upgrade to the containment field provided them with new principles to study. The security officers moved forward, but stopped as their neural implants suddenly activated. The human ship was broadcasting to everyone in the command center now, sharing the truth that had been hidden for centuries. "Your Empire made one crucial mistake," the human transmission stated calmly. "You assumed isolation would limit our growth. Instead, you gave us the perfect laboratory, a space where we could develop without interference, without preconceptions about what was possible." On the main screen, the sleek human vessel began to change, its hull flowing like liquid metal, revealing capabilities that made their previous demonstrations seem primitive in comparison. "We've spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment," the transmission continued. "Now we have something important to discuss about the future of galactic civilization." The HSS Defiant hung motionless in space, its obsidian surface now rippling with waves of iridescent energy. Every attempt to scan its hull returned increasingly bizarre readings, as if the ship itself was composed of equations rather than matter. Defense Minister Caxfon watched the main display with all 3 eyes, his neural interface struggling to process the latest sensor data. "What are we looking at?" he demanded. Before anyone could respond, the human vessel's surface shifted, revealing what appeared to be an observation deck. The windows were perfectly transparent, yet sensor scans showed they were stronger than the armor plating on an Imperial dreadnought. A figure stepped into view, human, female, wearing what looked like civilian clothing rather than a military uniform. Her image appeared on every screen in the command center, bypassing all security protocols, as if they didn't exist. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, captain of the HSS Defiant," she announced in flawless high Haxorian. "We appreciate your patience during our demonstration. I believe we've made our technological capabilities sufficiently clear." Zex 427, still under guard but permitted to observe, noticed something odd about the transmission. The captain's image wasn't being projected. Somehow, she was simultaneously present on every surface capable of displaying her. Even their neural interfaces showed her as if she were standing directly in their visual field. "You've violated Imperial space," Caxfon stated, trying to maintain authority despite the situation. "Your ship will be impounded and—" "Minister," Dr. Chen interrupted gently, "let's move past the ceremonial threats. You've already attempted to disable our systems 16 times in the past 3 minutes. Each attempt has given us fascinating insights into your current technological level. But we're here to talk about something far more important." The captain's image walked through the holographic displays as if they were doorways, appearing to step directly into the command center. It was a technological feat that should have been impossible with their quantum-encrypted systems. 300 years ago, your empire decided that humanity was too dangerous to join the galactic community, she continued. You erected the quantum barrier around our solar system, thinking it would contain us until we could be safely managed. The image smiled, and several Haxorian officers instinctively stepped back. What you never considered was how we would interpret this isolation. You see, we knew we weren't alone in the universe. We had proof. But instead of crushing our spirit, the barrier became our greatest teacher. The Defiant's hull shifted again, revealing layers of technology that defied conventional physics. What had appeared to be weapons were actually scanning arrays of unprecedented power. The ship wasn't armed for war. It was designed for exploration and understanding. Every time we pushed against the barrier, it pushed back, teaching us new principles of quantum mechanics. When we finally understood its construction, we didn't just break through. We learned to rewrite the underlying laws of reality that made it possible. Dr. Chen's image gestured, and a three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, showing dozens of similar barrier fields containing other civilizations. You didn't just imprison us, Minister. You imprisoned every species that showed too much potential, too much creativity, too much independence. Zex 427 watched as the implications dawned on the command staff's faces. The Empire's greatest secret was exposed, that the humans weren't acting like an angry, imprisoned species seeking revenge. We're not here to conquer or punish, Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying a weight of certainty that made every Haxorian in the room feel the truth of her words. We're here because we've learned something during our isolation that your empire never understood. The greatest achievements in science, in culture, in consciousness itself, come from cooperation, not containment. The pride of Haxor emerged from hyperspace in a burst of quantum energy, its massive form dwarfing the human vessel. Behind it, 10,000 Imperial warships materialized in perfect formation, their weapon systems charging with enough firepower to shatter a small moon. Admiral Supreme Vorkath's holographic image dominated the command center, his ceremonial armor glinting with numerous campaign medals. This has gone on long enough, he declared. Your ship is surrounded. Your technological advantages are impressive, but they cannot match the combined might of the Imperial fleet. Dr. Chen's image appeared beside him, still wearing the same casual attire, looking more like a professor than a ship's captain. Admiral, I understand the need for this display of force. It's quite impressive. However, I think there's been a misunderstanding about our respective positions. There is no misunderstanding, Vorkath countered. You will surrender your vessel for inspection and submit to Imperial authority, or we will be forced to demonstrate why the Haxorian Empire has remained unchallenged for 10,000 years. Zex 427 noticed something odd about the sensor readings. The Defiant's energy signature had changed, becoming almost musical in its complexity. The ship wasn't powering weapons. It was preparing something entirely different. Admiral, Dr. Chen said softly. We were hoping to avoid this kind of demonstration, but perhaps it's necessary for understanding. She turned to address the entire command staff. Please observe carefully. What you're about to see is a localized manipulation of temporal mechanics. We've taken precautions to ensure no harm will come to any of your ships or crew. Before anyone could respond, the Defiant began to move. Or rather, reality began to move around it. A sphere of distorted space expanded from the human ship, enveloping the entire Imperial fleet. Inside this bubble, time itself became malleable. To the horror of the Haxorian commanders, their ships appeared to freeze in place, caught in a moment between moments. The Defiant moved through the frozen fleet with deliberate grace, its hull brushing within meters of the Empire's most powerful weapons. It coasted past the Pride of Haxor's bridge, close enough for Admiral Vorkath to see his own reflection in its impossible surface. From the perspective of the command center, the demonstration lasted nearly 5 minutes. For the fleet, less than a picosecond had passed. When the temporal bubble dissolved, every ship in the Imperial fleet had been rearranged into a perfect double helix pattern, spanning several light seconds of space. Not a single vessel was damaged, not one weapon system had been disrupted, but the message was unmistakable. What you just witnessed, Dr. Chen explained to the stunned silence, was achieved using technology we developed nearly 50 years ago. It's one of our teaching tools, typically used to help our children understand basic four-dimensional physics. Admiral Vorkath's image had lost its imperial presence. Teaching tools, he whispered. Yes, she confirmed. You see, we could have dismantled your fleet. We could have bypassed your shields, disabled your weapons, or simply phased your ships into parallel space-time. But destruction has never been our goal. The Defiant's hull rippled again, this time revealing layers of technology that seemed to fold through dimensions the Haxorians had never imagined. Your quantum barrier taught us that imprisonment breeds innovation. But do you know what we learned once we broke free? That cooperation breeds miracles. Zex 427's neural interface was overwhelmed with new data as the human ship broadcast detailed scans of the fleet's new formation. The arrangement wasn't random. It was a mathematical proof written in starships, demonstrating principles of physics that the Empire's best scientists hadn't even theorized yet. Now, Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying both authority and invitation, shall we discuss the future of our species as equals? Zex 427's neural interface pulsed with new information as they dug deeper into the recently unlocked archives. Each file they opened revealed another layer of a truth so vast it threatened to overwhelm their comprehension protocols. This can't be correct, they muttered, cross-referencing the data streams. Their search had started with humanity, but it had led to something far more extensive. The quantum barriers weren't unique to Earth. They were scattered across the galaxy like a web of invisible prisons. The Defiant sensors had mapped them all, revealing the true extent of the Empire's containment protocol. But something else caught Zex 427's attention. Subtle irregularities in the barrier patterns, gaps that shouldn't exist. You've noticed it, haven't you? Dr. Chen's voice came through their private channel. The missing barriers. The unexplained energy signatures. The supposedly primitive trading vessels that somehow always avoid Imperial inspection. Zex 427's hands moved across their interface, pulling up surveillance reports from the outer sectors. Ships registered as basic cargo haulers were demonstrating energy patterns remarkably similar to the Defiant's quantum signature. We didn't just break free, Dr. Chen continued. We've been systematically dismantling the Empire's network of barriers for the past 50 years. But we didn't do it alone. The analyst's screen filled with new data, not from the Imperial archives, but from the human ship. It showed civilizations they'd been taught were primitive, isolated, or extinct. Each one had been contacted by humanity, taught the principles that allowed them to bypass their barriers, and brought into a hidden network of cooperation. The mind-singers of the Vega cluster, whose thought-based technology had terrified the Empire into containing them, were now teaching their psychic engineering principles to other species. The crystal architects of Proxima, imprisoned for their ability to reshape matter at the atomic level, had established universities across hidden worlds. Every species you imprisoned had unique insights, different ways of understanding the universe, Dr. Chen explained. When we brought them together, those insights combined in ways nobody could have predicted. ZEX 427 found themselves looking at technical specifications that defied conventional physics. The Mindsingers had learned to encode their consciousness into quantum states, while the crystal architects had developed ways to store vast amounts of data in crystalline matrices smaller than atoms. But our sensors would have detected this level of advancement. ZEX 427 protested, even as they realized the flaw in their argument. Your sensors can only detect what they're designed to detect, Dr. Chen replied. When you imprison species at different stages of development, they find innovative ways to advance, ways your civilization never considered possible. The evidence was undeniable. Hidden within what the Empire dismissed as primitive trade routes was an intricate network of advanced civilizations, sharing knowledge and resources beneath the very notice of their jailers. A new file appeared on ZEX 427's screen, a recording from a gathering of representatives from over 100 formerly imprisoned species. They weren't plotting revenge or organizing military forces. They were sharing discoveries, teaching each other, combining their unique perspectives to achieve things that should have been impossible. This is why we revealed ourselves today, Dr. Chen said. Not to demonstrate our power, but to show you what's possible when you stop containing advancement and start nurturing it instead. The implication struck ZEX 427 with stunning clarity. The Empire had created the very thing they feared, not through their containment protocol, but because of it. Their barriers had forced isolated species to think beyond conventional limitations, to develop technologies in ways the Empire had never imagined. And humanity, far from seeking revenge, had turned this network of prisons into the greatest cooperative scientific endeavor in galactic history. The Imperial Council chamber had never seen such an unprecedented gathering. High-ranking officials from every sector of the Empire sat in stunned silence as Dr. Chen's hologram stood in the center of the room, her presence somehow more real than the physical beings surrounding her. The Defiant is not, as some of you have suggested, our most advanced vessel, she explained, her words causing ripples of unease through the assembled dignitaries. It's a museum piece, chosen specifically for this meeting because of its historical significance. It was the first ship we built that could manipulate quantum fields. Defense Minister Caxfon leaned forward, his scales shifting color with anxiety. You mean to tell us that this vessel, which just effortlessly rearranged our entire defense fleet, is obsolete by your standards? Minister, the Defiant is to our current technology what a steam engine is to a fusion reactor. Dr. Chen gestured, and the chamber's air filled with holographic representations of human ships, each more impossible than the last. These are examples of our current exploration vessels. The assembled council watched in growing disbelief as the projection showed ships that could fold space like origami, create stable microscopic universes for power generation, and step sideways through dimensions that the Empire's scientists hadn't even theorized. But if you possess such power, Admiral Supreme Vorkath interrupted, why reveal yourselves now? Why not simply destroy the Empire that imprisoned you? Dr. Chen's expression softened, because that would make us exactly what you feared we would become. Instead, we chose a different path. We learned, we grew, and most importantly, we understood why you feared us in the first place. The holographic displays shifted to show scenes from Earth's history, wars, environmental disasters, and technological catastrophes. We were reckless once, she admitted. Our advancement outpaced our wisdom. Your containment barrier forced us to slow down, to think, to truly understand the principles behind our innovations. ZEX 427, now promoted to senior analyst and invited to the council session, noticed something remarkable about the human's presentation. The technology being displayed wasn't just advanced, it was elegant. Each innovation built upon natural principles in ways that seemed obvious in retrospect. "We're not here to shame you or to seek revenge," Dr. Chen continued. "We're here to offer you a choice. You can maintain your empire of isolation, continuing to imprison species that showed too much potential, or you can join us in something far more extraordinary." The chamber's displays transformed again, showing vast networks of cooperative research stations, universities where different species shared their unique perspectives on the universe, and technological achievements that bordered on the miraculous. Every species you imprisoned developed unique insights during their isolation. The Mindsingers learned to encode consciousness into quantum states. The crystal architects discovered principles of matter manipulation that defy conventional physics. Imagine what we could all achieve together. A senior council member stood, their ceremonial robes rustling. "And if we refuse this offer of cooperation, then we will respect your choice," Dr. Chen replied simply. "We'll continue our work with the species we've already freed, and you can maintain your empire exactly as it is. But you should know that the barriers you built to contain advancement have become redundant. We've evolved beyond them, not through force, but through understanding." The Defiance image appeared above the council chamber, its hull now transparent to reveal the incredible complexity of its systems. But it wasn't showing off its power, it was offering its knowledge, freely and without condition. "The choice is yours," Dr. Chen concluded. "You can remain an empire built on containment, or you can join a federation founded on cooperation. We're prepared to share everything we've learned. All you have to do is choose to learn with us." Senior diplomatic liaison Zex 427 stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Exchange Center, watching as ships from 100 different species arrived for the signing of the Terran-Haxorian Accord. Their neural interface hummed with activity as it processed the incredible variety of technologies on display. A crystalline vessel from the Proxima system phased through space like light through a prism. A Mindsinger ship, guided by pure thought, danced between dimensions. And at the center of it all, the newest human diplomatic vessel hovered, its form constantly shifting between states of matter that defied classification. "Quite a change from 3 months ago, isn't it?" Dr. Chen asked, stepping up beside them. She had discarded her holographic projection, choosing to attend this historic moment in person. "I never imagined I would see the Imperial Palace transformed into a center for galactic cooperation," Zex 427 admitted, watching as their former command center became a hub of interspecies scientific exchange. The human ship above them shifted again, its hull blossoming into a suspended garden of Earth plants, each one engineered to survive in space. It wasn't a display of power, but a demonstration of how technology could enhance life rather than constrain it. "The first gift is about to begin transfer," Dr. Chen noted, gesturing to the massive data streams flowing between the human vessel and the Haxorian network. "We thought long and hard about what knowledge to share first." Zex 427's neural interface lit up as the information began flowing through the system. "This is educational technology. We learned something vital during our isolation," Dr. Chen explained. "The speed of technological advancement isn't nearly as important as the wisdom to use it properly. This system will allow Haxorian children to learn at their own pace, to explore ideas in ways that match their unique thought patterns." Around them, the exchange center hummed with activity. Former Imperial scientists worked alongside researchers from once imprisoned species, their different perspectives combining to solve problems that had stumped them for centuries. The Mindsingers had set up a consciousness exploration laboratory, teaching others to expand their understanding of quantum consciousness. The crystal architects were demonstrating matter manipulation techniques that made traditional manufacturing obsolete. "Your civilization's greatest fear was that rapid advancement would lead to chaos," Dr. Chen continued. "But look around you. Every species here was forced to develop in isolation, and each one chose to share rather than dominate when they broke free." A group of young Haxorian students rushed past, their scales bright with excitement as they headed to a workshop on interdimensional mathematics taught by a coalition of formerly contained species. They showed no fear of the other races, only curiosity and enthusiasm. "The barriers are coming down across the galaxy," Zex 427 observed, watching the massive holographic display showing the systematic dismantling of quantum containment fields. "How many more species will we discover?" "That's the most exciting part," Dr. Chen smiled. "Each new civilization we contact brings their own unique insights, their own way of seeing the universe. Together, we're achieving things that none of us could have managed alone." The human ship above them transformed one final time, its structure resolving into a perfect representation of the galaxy, showing not just the physical space, but the countless quantum connections forming between formerly separated species. "You know what the greatest discovery of our isolation was?" Dr. Chen asked, watching as another barrier fell. Another civilization joined the growing network of cooperation. It wasn't the technology, the physics, or even the ability to transcend dimensional boundaries. "What was it?" Zex 427 asked, though they suspected they knew the answer. "That the universe is too vast, too wonderful, and too full of mysteries for any species to explore it alone." Dr. Chen turned to face the former analyst. "The real question is, what will we discover next, now that we're all exploring it together?"